April 4th, 2018. DeLand, Florida. An Embry-Riddle commercial check ride in a Piper Arrow. In level cruise, the wing separates, 2 dead before the wreckage hit the ground. The NTSB traces everything to a single fatigue crack in the lower spar cap, a crack that may have been built into the metal decades ago when the spar was cold bent at the factory. That one fracture started a paper trail now stretched across 10,927 Piper airframes, and the FAA is not done writing. The paperwork points to 10 Piper models next. Is yours on the list? We have pulled spars from Arrows, Cherokees, and Warriors. We have seen the fracture faces under the lab lights, the dull gray striations that tell the story in metal. N106ER had 7,662 hours when it came apart. The crack started at LC1, the outboard forward bolt hole in the lower spar cap. That is not a guess. The NTSB Structures Group put it under the scope and mapped the crack's path. More than 90% of the cap's cross-section was gone before the final break. No overload, no corrosion, just fatigue, working away where the eye cannot see. The lab report is blunt. 3 cracks, all radiating from the bolt hole, all invisible without a high-frequency eddy-current scan. The spar cap was cold bent at the factory, or so the claim goes. We have read the docket. No primary work order, no drawing, no memo has ever surfaced to prove that cold bend or dihedral lock was used on these later model spars. The NTSB did not find a smoking gun in the grain structure, no telltale signs of a hasty bend, no altered grain flow. What they did find was classic high-cycle, low-stress fatigue. The crack did not care about the paperwork. It grew with each landing, each touch and go. After the crash, Piper issued a service bulletin. Every sister Arrow in the fleet was scanned. 11 aircraft, 2 with histories just like N106ER. One showed a faint tip at LC1, caught by the eddy-current probe before it could grow. The rest were clean. More than 2,800 inspection reports landed on the FAA desk in the months that followed. More than 100 flagged possible cracks. 3 were confirmed, 3 more time bombs diffused by a scan and a replacement. Everyone matched the fatigue signature from DeLand. We have handled these spars, run our fingers along the bolt holes. If you are looking for drama, you will not find it in the metal. The threat here is silent arithmetic. Fatigue does not shout, it just keeps score, and if you do not check, it wins. That is why the inspections exist. The crack in N106ER is not a theory, it is a fact, and it is why the FAA started writing new rules. We have run the numbers ourselves, not just on the broken Arrow, but across the entire ledger the FAA has built since DeLand. The first wave was the 2018 Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, 1 line in the Federal Register, but it swept in nearly 21,000 airframes. The agency asked for reports, and the stack grew fast. More than 2,800 inspection files landed in the FAA inbox. Over 100 showed something, a flagged anomaly, a shadow on the scan, a reading that could not be ignored. 3 of those became confirmed fatigue cracks, each one matching the fracture signature from N106ER. That is not a rumor mill. That is the compliance record. The 2021 Airworthiness Directive locked in the eddy-current scan as the new normal. Every aircraft in the affected Piper families had to comply, PA-28s, Arrows, Warriors, Cherokees, Saratogas, and more. The rule was not a finish line, it was the first stake in the ground. Owners had to submit their inspection data, track cumulative service hours, and keep the paperwork tight. The FAA compliance summaries do not read like stories, they are ledgers. Each entry is a line, tail number, hours, scan result, action taken. More than 2,800 entries, more than 100 positive indications, 3 confirmed cracks. The rest, clean for now. But the ledger did not close in 2021. In September 2024, the FAA published 2 new proposals, dockets 2142 and 2143. The scope narrows, now 10,927 airplanes, but the rules get sharper. The fleet splits into 2 groups. Group 1 gets a hard wall at 25,000 hours. Group 2, the high timers, hit a ceiling at 11,999 hours unless a reinforcement kit is installed. Recurring eddy current inspections start at 3,000 cumulative hours and repeat on a fixed interval. Every hour, every landing, every scan feeds the math. There is no drama in the numbers, just arithmetic. The higher the hours, the steeper the risk curve, the closer the ledger gets to zero. This is exposure at scale. It is not about a single crack or a single airplane. It is about a fleet, thousands of wings, each one aging, each one scored by cycles and hours, each one now living on a compliance clock. The threat is not a sudden grounding. It is the slow, silent convergence of inspection counts, hour limits, and the cold logic of risk modeling. For these 10 Piper lines, the rules are written, the numbers are public, and the clock is running. We've watched the invoices climb with every new directive. The first to feel it are always the trainers, the Cherokees, Warriors, and Archers that keep the flight schools running. These are the workhorses, logging 100, sometimes 150 hours a year, cycling through touch and go after touch and go. We pulled the logs on a Cherokee 140 that never left the pattern. Its hull value sits around $90,000 on a good day, but the latest inspection mandate cost the operator nearly $6,000. That's just the scan, not the downtime. When the airplane sits for a week waiting for a slot at the non-destructive testing shop, the lost revenue stacks up. One school manager showed us his books. $12,000 gone in a single quarter just from having 2 Warriors offline for eddy current scans and paperwork. No drama, just subtraction. The math does not care about nostalgia. A Warrior family airframe, maybe worth $110,000 with a fresh annual, faces a $7,000 inspection bill. If the scan flag's a shadow, a replacement spar runs $70,000 or more, if you can find one. That is before factoring in the cost of pulling the wing, the labor hours, and the inevitable delays when a bolt or doubler arrives late from the parts warehouse. The arithmetic is simple. Inspection plus replacement equals more than the airplane is worth. We have seen Warriors parked behind the hangar, logbooks closed, waiting for an owner willing to write a check no accountant would recommend. The Archer is no safer. We ran the numbers for a 2005 Archer 3, hull value $120,000. Inspection $8,000. The reinforcement kit, if needed, adds another $15,000 in parts and labor. The break-even point moves every year as parts get harder to source. The shops we talk to keep a running list, which serials are viable for another cycle, which are one finding away from the scrapyard. Every manager we meet carries a spreadsheet that looks less like a maintenance plan and more like a triage chart. They are not waiting for a grounding order. They are watching the compliance math edge closer to zero, flight by flight, invoice by invoice. This is how the real threat works. No single rule, no dramatic sunset clause. Just a slow, silent convergence of costs and hours until the numbers tip and the airplane's last landing is not a crash, but a balance sheet decision. Arrow spars come out so often the process is routine, but the bills climb fast as you move up to the Dakota, Arrow, and Saratoga. These high horsepower singles bring bigger engines, more systems, and a wing that's heavier and tougher to work on. Each step up in complexity multiplies the risk and the cost until the numbers start to look upside down. The Dakota, Piper's FAA-2024-2142, carries a Lycoming 0540, which means more power and more stress on the same spar design that failed in the Arrow. Inspections are not quick. The lower cap bolt holes hide behind fuel lines and cables, so even a basic eddy current scan can take hours. Shops quote $10,000 just for a clean scan and a logbook sign-off. If a flaw shows up, a Dakota spar kit costs $75,000 to $85,000, and that is if you can get one. Piper lists a 14-week minimum lead time, but delays stretch past 20 weeks when production slows. Some Dakota owners have waited half a year, grounded, for a crate to arrive. The Arrow, with its retractable gear and packed systems, is worse. Pulling a wing takes a full day for an experienced crew. The scan alone can run $12,000, especially if you need a mobile NDT team and must cover downtime. If the spar fails, the Arrow replacement kit crosses $80,000. Many shops refuse to quote a flat rate, every hour is billable, and parts cost whatever Piper sets that quarter. Some Arrow owners have walked away from good airplanes because the repair invoice topped the hull value. Insurance companies see the same math. Without a clean scan, premiums jump or coverage disappears. Saratogas and Sixes share Cherokee spar routes, but the wings are longer, the loads higher, and parts are harder to find. A Saratoga spar kit lists for $85,000 to $100,000, not counting labor. Lead times have ballooned, factory calls return with 25 weeks or more as jigs and dies get tied up by higher volume models. That's half a year of hangar rent and lost flying, just waiting for a part number to clear. One mechanic keeps a whiteboard of overdue spar kits and hours lost to tooling delays, turning away Saratoga owners who cannot afford to wait or pay. Complexity turns compliance into a wall. For Dakota, Arrow, and Saratoga, the question is not safety, it is whether the cost to stay legal outpaces the airplane's worth. Every scan and every backordered kit pushes that answer closer to zero. The calendar does not care about nostalgia. The FAA-2024 avgas sunset is already written into law, December 31st, 2030 for the lower 48, and 2 years later for Alaska. The Eagle Initiative, with its alphabet soup of committees and industry partners, promises a certified unleaded 100-octane replacement called UL100E by the spring of 2027. But in the hangar, the real countdown is about hardware, not hope. Every fuel system bulletin, every retrofit kit adds a new line to the compliance ledger. We keep the charts on the wall: GAMI G100UL, Swift 100R, and the elusive UL100E. G100UL landed its STC in 2023, and Piper owners started calling about compatibility. The lab data is clear: nitrile O-rings, the kind found in Cherokee 235s, Arrows, and Saratogas, swell and leak when soaked in the new blends. AMRI bench tests showed up to 18% volumetric swell at typical engine bay temperatures. That is not a theoretical risk. Swollen seals mean fuel leaks, pressure drops, and the kind of vapor lock that does not show up until you are climbing out on a hot day. Piper's 2025 service bulletin calls for a full swap to Viton O-rings, fluorocarbon not nitrile, before any unleaded conversion. The bulletin is not just a suggestion. Without the right kit, you are off the insurance rolls, and the FAA will not sign off on the logbook entry. The vent line sealants too have to be checked for ethanol-free compatibility. The Eagle Task Force is still validating the Viton kits for each model, but the interim guidance is blunt: no retrofit, no unleaded fuel. Every owner faces two clocks now, one ticking down to the next spar inspection, the other to the day the FBO stops pumping 100 LL. The compliance math just doubled. For every Piper on the list, the cost to keep flying stacks up: inspection, spar kit, and now a full fuel system overhaul. The threat is not a single AD or a fuel ban. It is the sum of every deadline, every retrofit, every part number that turns a flying airplane into a grounded asset. Panels come off the Seneca, Twin Comanche, Tomahawk, Apache, and Aztec, and the bills stack up fast. The Seneca, Piper's staple twin, now faces a compliance scan costing $9,000 to $13,000, more than any single in the Cherokee line. If a crack turns up, the reinforcement kit alone costs more than $100,000 for parts only. Labor adds another 64 hours, 8 days lost, not counting parts delays. For charter operators, that is 10 to 15% of the annual budget gone before a single flight. The Seneca can sit for months, waiting on kits that always go to higher volume singles first. The Twin Comanche, out of production since 1972, relies on a dwindling supply of spar assemblies. No kit is available, only a full replacement, $80,000 to $95,000, if you can find one. Hull values hover near $180,000, so a flagged spar can erase half the airplane's worth overnight. Insurance companies see the risk. Without a current compliance letter, coverage is denied or premiums spike, pushing owners out. The Tomahawk, a two-seat trainer, faces a different squeeze. The bankruptcy trust controls the parts, and every compliance event means calling for a spar or kit that might not exist. Inspections run $4,000 to $6,000, but a replacement spar jumps to $70,000 with no promise of delivery. Flight schools are quietly dropping Tomahawks, not for safety, but because the numbers no longer work. For the Apache and Aztec, inspection costs run $5,000 to $9,000. But orphaned parts are the real threat. Each new rule, insurance demand, or trust inventory adds another line to the ledger. The squeeze is slow but relentless. We have stood at the bench with the invoices spread out, line by line, as the compliance math piles up. The numbers do not blink. For a typical Piper on the list, the 7-year cost to keep flying under the new regime lands between $55,000 and $60,000, assuming no surprises. That covers the recurring eddy-current scans, the logbook entries, the reporting hours, and the parts that never arrive on time. If a scan flags a flaw, the cost jumps. A reinforcement kit or a full spar replacement can each carry a price tag that wipes out the airplane's value in one stroke. Insurance companies have their own ledger. We have watched premiums climb 10 to 15% for any aircraft with an open airworthiness directive or a missing compliance letter. Some underwriters will not even quote a hull policy without proof of a clean scan. That spread alone can run thousands of dollars a year, and it is not negotiable. No paperwork, no coverage, no flight. The real squeeze comes with lead time. Piper's official queue for a spar kit runs 20 weeks at best, but we have seen it stretch past 6 months. Every day an airplane sits, the operator loses $300 or more in rental revenue or faces the cost of a substitute. The downtime multiplies. A missed inspection slot, a back-ordered part, a paperwork delay, and suddenly the bill is not just parts and labor, it is lost months and lost income. The mechanic's checklist is only half the story, the calendar is the other half. Every week, waiting is another line on the invoice, another digit on the total. That is the multiplier nobody budgets for, but everybody pays. We have run the numbers on Warriors until the ink wore through the paper. Take Warrior 11,500 cumulative service hours, clean logs, and a hull value that barely clears $70,000 on a good day. The latest quote for a replacement spar kit is $75,000, parts only. Add labor, downtime, and the odds of a back order, and you are staring at a break even north of $80,000. The math is simple, but the decision is not. If the scan flags a shadow, you either write the check or close the logbooks for good. No one wants to admit it, but most of these airframes are now one invoice away from permanent retirement. We work from a checklist now. First, estimate the true hull value, not the insurance number. Second, get a real quote for the inspection, the kit, and every hour of labor. Third, factor in downtime, weeks, sometimes months off the line. Fourth, call your insurer and ask what happens if you miss the next compliance letter. Fifth, check the part's lead time, because a promise from the factory is not a part in your hand. If the sum of inspection, kit, and lost revenue clears the hull value, the airplane is done. That is the survival split. The rest is just arithmetic, and the ledger does not care about nostalgia or hope. The only way through is to run the numbers, then decide if you are in for another cycle or if it is time to tie down for the last time. We have pulled these spars, run the numbers, and read every line of the directives. This is not theory, it is compliance math. By 2028, we're talking to 10 Piper families face forced retirement not by decree, but by converging costs no spreadsheet can outrun. The system is not malicious, it is mechanical. These are not paper groundings. They are economic extinctions measured in hours, dollars, and hard decisions. The reckoning lands in our logbooks, one airframe at a time.